This day and time. What happened today, years ago.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we look past the obvious headlines, trying to find those surprising threads, the ones connecting moments in history you might not think are related.
Exactly.
And today we're taking your sources on 3 really pivotal events. What's fascinating is they all happened on the same date, June 27th, just in different centuries.
Right.
We want to use this single date as a kind of unique lens to see how it helps us understand the forces that really shaped, well, the modern world we live in.
It's actually pretty remarkable when you line them up. These moments, just sharing a calendar date, they really highlight such a wide spectrum of human activity, don't they? And how societies evolve. You've got everything from, sheer individual willpower and triumph,
Right.
to the massive complexities of global conflict and even these huge leaps in technology. This deep dive, I think, will show you how they're all sort of interconnected parts of a much bigger story.
Okay, let's get into it. We're going to start way back, 1898, with a figure who I think really embodies that idea of individual discovery at its peak, Joshua Slocum.
Slocum, yeah.
Can you just imagine? Here's this master mariner, someone who truly knows the sea, inside and out.
Yeah.
Only to watch his entire profession basically become obsolete.
Yeah, steamships just changed everything for guys like him.
Exactly. The relentless march of progress, right? It sounds like he was facing not just a professional crisis, but a deep personal one, too. What was it about him or his situation that led him to such extreme response?
Well, that's spot on. His situation was dire. I mean, really dire. He'd lost his wife recently before that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was facing financial ruin. And like you said, his whole career as a captain of sailing ships seemed completely over. Done.
So rock bottom, basically.
Pretty much. But instead of just, giving up, he made this incredibly bold, almost crazy decision. He found this dilapidated old oyster sloop.
Just lying around.
He found it in a field near Fairhaven, Massachusetts, basically rotting. And he decides he's going to rebuild it himself. He turned it into the Spray, as he called it. This wasn't just fixing a boat. It was his radical path to reinventing himself, proving his worth again.
And what a path it turned out to be. The sheer audacity.
Yeah.
Here's Slocum already dealing with personal loss and financial ruin.
Right.
And he sets off from Boston in 1895, not with fancy modern gear, but relying on, the old ways dead reckoning.
Dead reckoning, yeah. Plotting his course based on his last known position, speed, direction, incredibly difficult over long distances.
And just a simple, cheap clock, he battles through the Strait of Magellan, notoriously treacherous waters.
A ship graveyard, basically.
Then across the massive, isolating Pacific, the Indian Ocean, rounds the Cape of Good Hope, another really dangerous spot.
Absolutely, the Cape of Storms.
Before finally sailing back into Newport, Rhode Island. And the date, June 27th, 1898, after more than 3 years alone at sea.
And the challenges he faced were just immense. He mentioned the storms, violent ones. He had run-ins with pirates or people he feared were pirates.
Seriously, pirates?
Oh, yes, particularly near Gibraltar in South America. He got desperately sick at times. And then there's just the profound, crushing loneliness of being utterly alone for that long.
I can't even imagine.
His persistence, though, it wasn't just about finishing. It became this powerful statement, about individual resilience, about ingenuity. In a world that was becoming so industrialized, he proved that skill, sheer grit, could still redefine what was possible.
And his legacy really lasts, doesn't it? Especially because he wrote about it. That book, Sailing Alone Around the World.
Published in 1900, yeah, that book made him a global icon, cemented his story.
Right.
He's widely seen as, the pioneer of solo circumnavigation, a symbol of freedom, real tenacity, and that pure spirit of exploration. And there's that added layer of mystery, too, right? His disappearance in 1909, sailing the Spray again, somewhere out in the Atlantic, just vanished.
Adds to the legend.
Completely.
Slocum's story, it really forces you to think about the power of just one person's will, doesn't it? What's the biggest lesson you take away from his ability to just completely redefine his place when the world seemed to have passed him by?
For me, it's a potent reminder. Technology changes things, industry shifts the ground under our feet, sure. But it doesn't just cancel out human ingenuity or persistence.
Yeah.
Slocum wasn't just trying to survive the changes, he was actively pioneering something new out of the old skills. He showed that when one way seems closed off, well, the human spirit can rebuild the vessel, so to speak, and navigate entirely new waters. It's about agency, really. Personal agency against overwhelming change.
It really is. Makes you wonder how we navigate our own rapid changes today, doesn't it? Potential obsolescence.
Good point.
But okay, what happens when that kind of ambition isn't just individual, but it's backed by the immense power and resources of an entire state?
Good transition.
Our next stop on June 27th takes us from Slocum's solitary quest to a huge state-driven technological leap. And the backdrop, the really tense early days of the Cold War.
Exactly. A very different world from Slocum's. The Soviet Union had tested its first atomic bomb in 1949.
Right, shifting the global power dynamic hugely.
Massively. The world was sharply divided, immense fear, but also this kind of burgeoning hope around atomic power. The Obninsk project, well, it was a direct Soviet initiative. It came about partly to counter the U.S.'s Atoms for Peace campaign.
Okay, so a bit of PR, a bit of competition.
Definitely. It was designed to showcase nuclear power not for bombs, but for peaceful civilian uses, to position the USSR as a leader in this new atomic age for progress, not just destruction.
And the heart of this project was the AM-1 reactor. What was special about its design?
Well, it used graphite channels, enriched uranium, and light water cooling. Pretty cutting-edge stuff for the time, though, interestingly, some of those design elements, particularly the graphite moderation.
Right, foreshadowing Chernobyl.
Sadly, yes. That design concept was a precursor to the RBMK reactors, like the one at Chernobyl. But back then, it was seen as a major achievement. And crucially, on June 27, 1954, it was successfully connected to the electrical grid.
Making it the world's first.
The world's first nuclear power plant built specifically for civilian power generation and connected to a grid. Not just an experiment, like you said earlier, but actually producing electricity for use.
Wow. What about its legacy, beyond being the first?
Well, it had a long life. It operated for 48 years, which is pretty impressive.
Nearly 5 decades.
Yeah. And during that time, it contributed a lot to nuclear research, developing medical isotopes, even advancing submarine reactor technology. It also helped establish the whole concept of the Soviet Science City, or Novgorod.
What's that exactly?
These were often closed cities built specifically around major research facilities or industrial projects like Obninsk, concentrating expertise, driving state technological goals. It symbolized that drive for scientific supremacy.
This Obninsk moment, it really captures that duality, doesn't it? Huge promise on one hand, but also these inherent, profound risks. What do you think are the most enduring lessons from Obninsk about handling powerful new technologies?
It absolutely embodies that duality. I think it shows that any really big technological leap, especially one with the kind of power atomic energy represents, it always comes as a double-edged sword.
Right.
Obninsk showed incredible potential clean energy research breakthroughs, but its design, as we noted, hinted at the enormous risks that would unfortunately play out later. It's maybe one of the first big global lessons in needing to balance that ambition with really rigorous safety, ethical thinking, foresight.
At balance. Promise versus risk. Feels like we're constantly grappling with that, doesn't it? AI, genetic engineering.
Same fundamental tension, absolutely.
Right, so we've gone from individual voyages to state-controlled atoms. Now let's shift gears again, pretty dramatically this time. We're moving to a high-stakes, real-time crisis, international terrorism, and an event that would basically forge modern counterterrorism tactics.
This takes us to 1976. Specifically, the hijacking of Air France Flight 139. It was seized shortly after takeoff from Athens, ultimately diverted to Entebbe Airport in Uganda, spanning June 27th and 28th.
Who were the hijackers?
A mix. Primarily members of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the PFLP, but also 2 German members from a far-left group called Revolutionary Cells, or RZ.
And crucially, they weren't acting totally alone, were they?
No, and that's key. They had support on the ground from the Ugandan dictator, Idi Amin. He essentially provided them sanctuary and assistance. This added that element of state-sponsored terrorism, making the situation incredibly complex and dangerous.
And then came that detail that just sent chills down everyone's spine.
The separation, yes. The hijackers deliberately separated the Israeli and Jewish passengers from the others, releasing many of the non-Jewish hostages over the next couple of days.
An act that, for obvious reasons, brought back terrible, haunting memories of the Holocaust.
Instantly. And that specific act, more than anything perhaps, it really fueled an intense debate back in Israel. What do? Negotiate with terrorists holding your citizens under the protection of a hostile dictator? or attempt something else.
Military rescue seemed almost impossible.
It seemed incredibly risky, bordering on suicidal, some thought. But ultimately, after days of agonizing debate, Israel chose the military option, a daring, almost unbelievable rescue operation, rather than get drawn into protracted negotiations they felt would only encourage more terrorism.
Operation Thunderbolt. The story is just. It still sounds like fiction. Israeli commandos flying something like 4,000 kilometers.
Over 2,500 miles, yeah. Deep into hostile territory, mostly under the cover of darkness.
It's just mind-boggling. They land C-130 Hercules planes. They storm the terminal. How long did the actual rescue take?
The ground operation itself, just 90 minutes. Astonishingly fast, they managed to rescue 102 hostages.
Incredible. But not without cost.
No. Tragically, the ground commander, Yonatan Netanyahu.
Netanyahu's brother.
That's right, he was the only Israeli commando killed in the raid. 3 hostages were also killed during the crossfire. But they killed all 7 hijackers present and also destroyed, I think it was 11 Ugandan MiG fighter jets on the ground to prevent pursuit.
Wow. So how did the world react? Must have been divisive.
Oh, absolutely. Predictably mixed. Western nations, by and large, praised the operation, called it decisive, courageous, and necessary blow against international terrorism.
Right.
But the socialist bloc, many non-aligned nations, they condemned it, often framed it as a violation of Uganda's national sovereignty, despite Amin's clear complicity.
So, Entebbe really set a precedent, didn't it? It changed the playbook for dealing with this kind of threat. What's the biggest takeaway for you on its long-term impact on global security?
Its legacy is just profound. You can't really overstate it. Entebbe essentially defined the model for modern, precise, long-range counter-terrorism hostage rescue operations.
It inspired other countries.
Directly. It's widely credited with inspiring the creation of elite special forces units around the world, very much including the US's Delta Force. But beyond the military tactics, it forced this huge ongoing debate about the ethics, the strategy, the politics of what's called active rescue. When is it justified? What are the risks? It fundamentally shifted how governments thought about and responded to hostage crises.
So there we have it. 3 very different events, 3 snapshots from one single day, June 27th, across different eras, each one marking a really profound shift.
Yeah.
We saw the sheer power of individual will with Joshua Slocum back in 1898. Then that double-edged sword of technological ambition, state power with Obninsk in 54. And finally, the harsh realities of modern global conflict and the evolution of proactive intervention really forged in the fire of Entebbe in 76.
It really does highlight how these moments, which seem so separate, just linked by a date on the calendar, they actually weave together this incredibly rich tapestry, showing the forces that have genuinely shaped the world we navigate today. And they make us grapple with these big, enduring questions, don't they, about, human agency, the real price of progress, the nature of conflict, and how we choose to respond.
So as you go about your day, maybe mull this over. How might looking at other seemingly random dates in history, not just June 27th, maybe give us some unexpected clues about the patterns, the pressures that are still shaping our world right now? How do these past challenges, these past choices, connect to the opportunities and dilemmas we face today?
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more history daily.